Emily, unfortunately that's true, but the fatality numbers this year have been inflated by multi-fatality accidents.
What is it looking like there at the Valentine campaign party?
Emily, it's been quiet so far, with guests not expected to arrive until after 7 o'clock once polls close. Now, this bill has been in the works since the beginning of this legislative session, and it had been receiving new amendments since up until about early this week, actually. Emily, according to a probable cause statement, Montez Williams admitted to shooting and killing April Joanne Brooks right here on Blue Ridge Drive Sunday evening. Well, Emily, I was able to confirm that one person was injured after falling into the river while working on this bridge right behind me. Well, Julie, today's event was all about food distribution. Now, for people to have the ingredients to make an at-home dinner. The next event is Thanksgiving Day and is an in-person meal for any and all who need a place to eat. Yeah, CPS says they are starting to implement it this year at the middle school level, but not all grades will use it for another 6 years or so. I can confirm that Barry is in fact the victim who was treated at the scene and is also an MU student.
Now to the other amendment. The Missouri National Guard has been under the Department of Public Safety since 1974, but one amendment on this year's ballot could make their department their own. And Missourians may be asking, why isn't it already? KMU8's Blake Phillips takes a closer look at Amendment 5 and tells us what you need to know before you vote.
By now, you have probably heard about Missouri's Senate candidates and the marijuana amendment. But lesser-known Amendment 5 is also on the ballot.
This is a really simple amendment. The Constitution of 1945 established 15 departments. And in order to increase the departments, you have to go to you have to have a constitutional amendment.
On November 8th, this amendment could change just that.
So this merely raises the National Guard to a departmental level status to work directly, with the governor and the cabinet and his cabinet.
Major General Steve Danner is the former Adjutant General of the Missouri National Guard and a Democrat who supports the amendment. He says the amendment would help the Missouri National Guard respond to natural disasters more efficiently. Lawmakers approved the proposal with bipartisan support in spring.
It was about as bipartisan as a vote as you could get. I think there was one nay, maybe 10 or 11, no votes on the House side. I think it was unanimous except for 2 absentees on the Senate side.
But recently, the Missouri Democratic Party raised opposition in a statement posted to social media, calling the amendment Republican overreach and saying local communities should be able to determine how their own budgets are allocated.
I'm a Democrat and I was a Democratic office holder, but I'll just say this is not about politics. The bottom line is this is about saving lives and cutting red tape.
Currently, if the governor wants to activate the National Guard, he has to call the Department of Public Safety, who then calls the National Guard. If Amendment 5 passes, it will eliminate the middleman and allow the governor and National Guard to communicate with each other directly.
This cuts that red tape, and as everyone knows, the more bureaucracy you have in the government, the slower government reacts, and especially in a crisis situation when you've got to be out right now.
Blake Phillips, KMU8 News, Jefferson City.
Missouri and Massachusetts are the only 2 states without a separate department of the National Guard. For more information on Amendment 5 and all ballot questions you can expect to see on November 8th, you can find a complete voter's guide on our website, KOMU.com. The recent voter ID bill passed by state legislature at the end of session in May is set to take effect this Sunday, but some civil rights groups are taking a stand against that legislation after lawsuits were filed by the groups yesterday. KMU8's Blake Phillips spoke to them today to understand what the lawsuits are aiming to do, Blake.
Well, Emily, barring an injunction, House Bill 1878 will be in place come the midterm elections. And while the bill may have passed, a coalition of civil rights groups are not done fighting the legislation.
Our legislature has sought to impose strict photo ID.
House Bill 1878, more commonly known as the Voter ID Bill, will go into effect on August 28th. But in a last-ditch effort, a coalition of civil rights groups led by the Missouri chapter of the NAACP filed a lawsuit yesterday to stop the bill.
The first issue and the first lawsuit that we filed was on the ability of residents or citizens in Missouri to register other citizens. That has in effect been criminalized. The second lawsuit focuses on the strict photo ID requirement, which was ruled unconstitutional.
The lawsuit aims to clarify some of the bill's language over paid volunteers helping to register voters.
The language on its face is vague and doesn't give civic engagement organizations like our clients the ability to understand what conduct is actually criminalized under the law.
And while the NAACP and Missouri Voter Protection Coalition lead the charge against the bill, other organizations are aiming to make voter ID more accessible to groups challenged by getting one.
And so we're working with several faith community leaders across the state to establish what we call photo ID assistant sites.
At these sites, the MFV and other groups will help people get the documentation that they need with the help of the Secretary of State.
And so the good news is that there is at least communication between the faith community, the Black community, and the Secretary of State's office, so that we can find out that in the midst of the mess, what can we do?
So Blake, how long does it take to get a driver's license right now?
Well, Emily, it can take anywhere from 7 to 10 business days. So to be safe, you should probably head to the DMV at least 2 weeks before election time.
Good advice. Thanks, Blake. After 7 years as superintendent of the Jefferson City School District, Dr. Larry Linthicum is stepping down. A University of Missouri grad, he's worked in education since 1994. KMU's Blake Phillips sat down with him to discuss what he hopes to leave behind after almost 3 decades in education.
A familiar face in the hallways of Jefferson City schools is moving on after 27 years in education.
It's kind of a dream job for me to come back here. I started out teaching Jefferson City High School back many moons ago. And so coming back here was just a great opportunity and glad to be a part of some of the successes we've had.
Superintendent Dr. Larry Linthicum will retire at the end of June and take up a new position as president of Special Olympics Missouri.
And I'm excited to jump right in, and at the end of the day, all the opportunities for our students and adults with intellectual disabilities and the opportunities that they have, and rallying together, working strong together to give them opportunities to be successful.
For the district and other staff, his impact has gone beyond just the classroom.
And he's always really listened to the teachers and staff, and even just been there for us and the students. And I think that's been the most impactful thing that he's done.
Linthicum has made a point to get to know staff and students at all 18 schools within the district, attending events from high school basketball games to poetry reads at Lawson Elementary.
Learn. School can also be boring. School can also be fun.
Schreiber says that because of this, his relationships throughout the district will be his legacy.
I mean, he's been in our buildings. He's given us opportunities as teachers to express our thoughts and feelings, and he's listened to us. So he's built connections and relationships with us. He's done that across the district.
But for Linthicum, he says it's not about his legacy.
At the end of the day, it's not about me. It's really not. At the end of the day, if our kids are being successful, then I'm being successful. I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road in our students.
Blake Phillips, KMU8 News, Jefferson City.
With graduation rates at a 30-year high, Linthicum says he is proud of the progress they've made. He starts at the Special Olympics in early July, while the new superintendent, Brian McGraw, will take over after he leaves.